Rest in peace to DJ City Lights. Shot 8 times senselessly during a hijacking last week, and unfortunately succumbed to those injuries during a botched, well, not botched, during a hijacking that actually took place. Rest in peace to him. He was laid to rest this past weekend. Very sad to hear about his passing, as he now joins his late brother, Linda, or also known as Pro Mkize. This was Pro's younger brother, and someone who was very highly looked up to in the industry, as somebody who was also seen as making an impact. And due to such things and the nature of the family he comes from, as well as the area where he comes from, Soweto, and how they were moving, it was really, really, really difficult to find out, Kanti, that more tragedy was to befall the family. May his soul rest in peace. Today, we are talking budgets, and on the very day that our finance minister decides, or not decides really, but has to come and give us the plan.
Yeah.
And it's not just a plan. He has to go and ask Parliament to approve this plan. So we get to see and watch in on that, see what he has to say and how it affects us in the different sectors. Those of us who are self-employed, those of us who are full-time employed by an employer, those who are still looking for employment, those who are manufacturers, whatever you are into, those of you who are import and export, those of you who are in the finance sector and maybe just want some clarity to kind of assist you going forward with how you would advise people going forward throughout the year, as well as knowing what the finance minister, meaning government, then has in mind for the finances, and what offhand are we expecting as far as the budget speech, Faniswa? The things that we need to look for. What are the indicators?
True. With that introduction, I think it's safe to say that I can walk out and you can continue with the tax feature, because that is basically a summary of everything that I've prepared for today. What exactly are we looking forward to in the budget speech? Today is not an education feature. We all trying to predict the future.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
And we I guess we all have different areas where we feel need to be touched on.
Yes.
That affect us directly. But the overall, what are we looking for? What are the top things we're looking for it to be a good budget speech, like a positive budget speech?
A positive budget speech will be well balanced between sort of roping in revenue from the taxpayers, but balance that with the fact that we are still in the midst of a pandemic. Many jobs have been lost and many businesses have been closed.
Yeah.
And how do you then still expect those same taxpayers to still have revenue
or foot the bill in essence?
So it's a balancing act, a very big balancing act that the finance minister needs to do today.
Where do we start today?
Today, let's start with some of the expectations.
Okay.
As you correctly mentioned, the big question is, will there be tax rate increases? And it's really tough to say because the last rate increases that we experienced were in 2016 and in 2018.
Yes.
Where in 2016, all of the tax brackets moved up by 1%, all except the 18% tax bracket that is for individuals. And then in 2018, we saw the introduction of the 45% income tax bracket.
Yes.
For individuals.
And there was a big woo-ha about
that
as well.
There was a big hoo-ha. So those happened about 4 or 5 years ago. And people are speculating that there's scope to sort of play around in that field again.
Okay.
But with the advent of COVID and everything that's happened, with all retrenchments that have happened, businesses having to close down, and the unrest that we experienced last year in July.
And the actual question of where do you think we get it from?
Exactly.
Like if there is talk around an increase, where are we supposed to tighten? Which notch are we supposed to tighten the belt to?
Yes. I mean, at this stage, we should all be taking out knives and sort of punching new holes into our belts.
That's how far gone the belt is. It can probably fit another person.
Yes. Very true.
Right.
So in my opinion, I don't think we'll see an increase in the personal income tax rates.
Yeah.
But there has been a lot of speculation about wealth taxes.
Yes.
And just as a background, we are living in a country where 80% of the population has no access to wealth. They're not even part of the middle class. So we're sitting with a large population of people that can barely afford to live.
Yeah.
And we're sitting with a 10% who own 90% of the wealth. So
we're talking about the people who own the profit of the profit.
Yes.
Okay.
So there is now calls for government to start introducing a wealth tax, which would then specifically target those wealthy individuals. And that's obviously going to come with a lot of backlash,
of course,
from the individuals, because they too are obviously feeling the pinch of being overburdened with tax, and now you add another layer of tax.
Oh, they took another 5 million from you. Oh.
I mean,
let me wipe those billionaire tears.
They budgeted for that. They were going to buy another mansion. They were going to buy another yacht.
My yacht, like, it's such a delay. It's been 3 years now, Dad. It's been 3 years now, Dad.
Right. But I mean, government has to source the money from somewhere, and there's that speculation has been very rife over the last couple of years, and there's speculation that we could see an introduction to that. But with regards to that,
and this is like the bracket of obscene wealth. Like,
yes.
I say obscene because maybe that's just the word to describe the levels of wealth. We're talking about generational wealth, people who couldn't go broke if they tried.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And another speculation is around VAT. Now, you'd remember in 2018, the VAT rate increased for the first time from 14% to what it is now, 15%. And there's speculation where...
And we cried about that.
We cried.
Because that just,
Yes.
And we got used to 14%. When was that? Was that 1990...
1991.
When it was 91 when we crossed over from GST to... Yes.
So there's a lot of speculation, but I don't think the finance minister has enough room to move with regards to that as well.
Sure.
Because the VAT rate has recently increased. I mean, and with regards to VAT, it hits the consumers more than it hits business owners or wealthy individuals, and it hits the poorest of the poor. So what has been speculated at the moment is the finance minister might want to play around with the items that fall under the zero rate of tax. So you've got those basic foodstuffs like your brown bread, your wheat, your flour, your milk, eggs, etc., that are being taxed for VAT purposes at 0%. So look at moving those up to maybe the standard rate of tax. But then again, it's hitting the poor.
And that seems to be the trend where is it maybe because it's easier to get buy-in from people who feel like they've got no choice than to get resistance from people who are like, why us?
I don't think it's easier to get buy-in, but we don't have, I say we because I count myself in that lower class. We don't have the financial muscle or the legal muscle to be fighting this. To influence, yes. Whereas the wealthier individuals, they're sitting in higher positions. They've got a lot more influence within parliament, within our government structures.
And they can send their lawyers to go handle it while
yes,
they're in Saint Tropez somewhere. Yeah.
Saint Tropez, I wish. Listen. And something else that the finance minister, Tito Mboweni, the former finance minister, Tito Mboweni raised last year.
This was before he cooked supper.
Before, yes. Was a possibility of decreasing the income tax rate for companies from what it is now, 28%, to possibly having it lower at 27%.
Okay.
So that's also something that we're looking forward to.
What would that mean?
So
if it's something that was actioned, what would that mean for those who benefit from that?
The incentive for business owners or companies would be that obviously you're getting taxed, your profits are getting taxed at a lower rate. So you're paying over to the revenue much less money, and it opens up the pool of people who would then be interested in opening up business if you're going to be paying less tax. And it sort of aligns South Africa more with other countries because we are global citizens. We operate in a global space. So it would encourage companies from abroad to come and invest in South Africa as well.
So we're playing closer to what the global standard might be.
That's correct.
Got you.
Yes.
Got you.
And then obviously we cannot talk about the budget speech without talking about sin taxes.
Oh, yes.
So your excise duties, your sin taxes on alcoholic beverages, tobacco products, and most recently sugary foodstuffs. So we saw the introduction a couple of years ago with regards to a sugar tax.
Yeah.
And that also forms part of sin taxes, and that has generally increased every year. But now, looking at where we currently are with so many bans on alcohol that we've experienced during COVID, the alcohol or the liquor industry has come out to say, or to put forward a request for the sin taxes not to be increased above inflation.
Yeah.
So we'd see if the finance minister would then bend to that request. And just as a background, why we have these taxes, these additional taxes, because you pay VAT on your alcoholic beverages, you pay VAT on your tobacco products, but in addition to that, you would then pay this excise tax. But why is that seeming double taxation? Why is that the case? And that is sort of to put these products at a higher cost so as to deter people from using these products.
Right.
And the government would want to do that so that it reduces the load on the healthcare system.
And it's not illegal to consume the product, but it's discouraged in the sense of health benefits lack thereof of the product themselves.
And the reason why government would want to deter people from consuming these products is because if something happens, you're consuming alcohol, you get into an accident, an ambulance needs to come out to you. That ambulance gets driven by a paramedic. It gets driven with petrol that comes from the state.
Yes.
So it's a usage of state funds.
It's a burden on the state regardless.
Yes. So then the finance minister then would need to balance that. The request from the liquor industry not to increase excise duties beyond inflation with the collection of, because obviously if they charge more, they collect more, but then how do they balance?
Right.
It's a balancing act.
And the sin tax is not going away anytime soon because the risks associated with the reasons they're taxing also haven't decreased. We
correct.
Find that during the festive season, the accidents and things of that nature associated with driving under the influence and things of that nature. So because of that, every year we just need to know how much they're raising it by. It's not going to be if.
It's how much.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to increase, but the question is how much.
Sure.
And then something interesting that has come out is the digital devices tax.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
So you will remember that we are actually liable to pay a TV license. Anybody with a TV set is actually liable to pay a TV license.
I didn't realize that was legislature more than maybe just something of a policy within the national broadcaster. I never realized.
That is legislated. You need to pay an annual amount towards a TV license if you've got a TV set. But what we find happening in practice is that if True has a TV set and I want to purchase a TV set, I will take True's TV license and
go and purchase a TV set, or True will go with you. Whatever the process. And again, we're not advising. We're making a case study example of how
it practically happens.
How practically it's happening, and why it's so difficult then to accurately monitor.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what the government is currently looking at is introducing a devices tax or a digital device tax, because at the moment anybody can access television. You don't necessarily need a television set to access television.
Right.
You can access TV material from your phone, from your laptop, from
with
tablet.
your mobile applications now,
That's
and those
correct.
secondary benefits of subscribing initially. Yeah.
That's correct. So the government is looking at introducing a digital devices tax. So any household with a digital device would then be liable for this tax. So whether or not
digital how though? Like cell phones, tablets, and you get taxed per device.
At the moment, I think it's per household.
Okay.
It would be kind of ridiculous to tax per device because you've got individuals that have two cell phones.
And you've got company stuff.
Companies. I've got a cell phone for my 4-year-old son.
Yes.
So would he be liable then for tax?
Shame he doesn't even have an ID yet. And he's got to pay. They're like, listen, man, you use the device, bro. Like, just pay up. And he's like, what are you talking? What are you talking about? Like, dude.
Yeah.
Just cough it up. Okay, you sub.
I would imagine that it's something that would be implemented per household.
Right.
Yeah.
So it'd be more of a levy
Yes.
than anything, you know?
Yes.
And also, if they do per household, what household do you know that doesn't have a single digital device in it?
Very, very few.
I'd like to know one.
Very few.
And I'd actually like to come over for dinner and see what kind of interesting conversations they have around the table. Without digital devices. They must have great conversations.
They must have, and they must have read a lot of books as well.
Yes. And look at the stars and things, you know?
Yes. And then lastly, we will chat about home office expenses.
Okay.
Now, over the last 2 years, we've had individuals who have been working from home.
Yes.
Who've turned their bedrooms, their lounge, their kitchens, their dining room areas into office spaces, and they are actually incurring costs in the production of business activities.
Some of these people have no intention of going back to the office.
That's
and their employers are very happy about that because they've also downsized maybe the size of the office.
The office, yes.
Got rid of a few floors in the building. Only essential people in there. Everybody else can submit the same way you've been doing.
Yeah.
We feel it works better this way, type of thing. Okay.
So now the question is, for a person in that space,
yes,
would they be able to claim for their home office expenses?
Right.
And the law currently is very strict in terms of what constitutes a home office. A home office would need to be a space specifically designated to an office. So not your bedroom and then you've got a little table on the side where you work from.
So it needs to be a space with a door, like an enclosure, where within the walls are all the office related or work related materials.
That's correct.
Right.
And it must be used solely and exclusively for work purposes.
So it can't be a mobile office spread throughout the house, like the router is over there, the computer's there.
No.
It has to be within one space.
That's correct.
Got you.
So then that is now the biggest challenge. How do we then justify someone like myself who's turned their bedroom into an office space?
Right.
But I am actually working in the space and I'm generating income. I should be able to deduct some of the expenses that I incur.
Because they don't disappear because you don't qualify for consideration. Those costs are still there.
Their costs are still there.
Right.
And some of the costs that one might look at claiming for a deduction is if you've paying rent on your premises, and you've actually got a home office as is currently defined in the Income Tax Act, is a portion of your rental expenses. So you say you're paying 10,000 Rand for your entire unit, you would then measure how much of that space in square meters is actually dedicated to
allocated to your business,
to the office. Yes. And then if it's 10%, you then claim 10% of the rent, claim 10% of the water. If you use your telephone for work-related expenses,
then 10% of the bill.
Maybe
internet, you itemize the outgoing calls if you can.
If you can.
Okay.
Your Wi-Fi at home. If you bought a printer specifically for your office, those type of expenses.
Got you.
So it will be a very, very interesting budget. A lot of things that the minister needs to balance, and also taking a look at our current economic climate with regards to the devastation that has been caused by the COVID pandemic and where we are as a country with the high employment rate. Is he going to increase those taxes? And where are we?
What about the youth? We know that there is a high rate of youth unemployment.
Yes.
Would there be any room for the minister? And I guess here we're also just, taking a guess. But would there be any room for the minister to kind of make some provisions for unemployed youth? Not necessarily a grant of some kind, but some opportunities of some kind, a voucher to go and, get things. Is that something or is that the thinking even of our leadership at the moment?
I'm actually not sure, True, because government could actually say budget is very tight at the moment, with the president in the last couple of weeks announcing that those COVID grants, those 350 rands, will be extending for another year.
Yeah.
Government could then say there's no scope for youth to get another social grant or anything of the sort.
And that would be a tough call. That would be a tough call given the realities.
Yes.
Given the realities. And how do you look an unemployed graduate in the face for another year and say, look, just hang in there?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what our president said in the sense that government does not, unfortunately, create jobs.
Yes.
Jobs are created by the private sector, and we need the private sector to step in and partner with government. But we also need government to open up to those partnerships, because I think that is where the red tape and the delay is currently at.
And this is the same private sector which has also taken a knock.
Yeah.
So
yes,
it's not impossible to ask, because with the private sector, recovery is pretty standard.
Yeah.
Once they get all their systems back into place, even after the looting and things of that nature,
yes,
it's business as usual. They've got a lot to recover. Yes, these losses were incurred, but their systems are how they got to generate the income in the first place. So once the revenue is turning, at least then they should be able to assist in the change of things.
But we need government to also step up and sort of loosen some of the red tape, because there's quite a lot of red tape with regards to engaging with government at the moment.
And wouldn't government need to tighten their belts as well?
True. We've been saying this, though. I mean, we can go back. Years and years into prehistoric speeches, and this has been said.
Like, guys, just pull back a little bit,
Right.
We're not saying all the way, because we know that's a lot to us. But wow, sometimes just pull out your own debit card. Like, it's a 40 rand meal. I think you can.
But I'm scared of how we've normalized.
This is the thing, and also how difficult we find it now to call bad behavior.
Yeah.
You see,
it's normal. It's expected.
The budget speech happening today on the 23rd of February 2022. Ours as KNR is to kind of just dig into some of the key components that we are hoping will be touched on. Well, we know will be, but we are hoping we will be touched on at the levels that will be satisfactory, not only to the public, but also to the economy as we look forward to what will happen in the future. Given all of this, all ears and all eyes are on the finance minister. Our resident tax consultant and expert, Faniswa Mavuso from the Tax Cafe. How do they get in touch with you in case they want to touch up on some of these pointers?
Call me on 061-874-2546 or email info@thetaxcafe.co.za. All social media is at the Tax Cafe.
We could have done this alone, but and you could have been anywhere between 9 and 12, but this is where you've chosen to be. And for that, we are eternally grateful. Thank you so much for making Moment of Truth your 9 to 12 destination. Until tomorrow, take care of yourselves. And until after the budget speech, so we can take care of each other. Peace.
We are extraterrestrial. We are KNR. Radio according to you.